This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
Welcome back to another edition of the Big Fish Cares Podcast. This guest today, again, another amazing story of somebody that's overcame. Adversity is just like part of life with this guest. He's a fellow entrepreneur, similar story in Pittsburgh. He's a roofer. I got Travis Kenny with me today from Planet Roof. Travis, how you doing, man?
What's up, Benny? How you doing?
Doing good, man. This is actually the second time we've recorded this podcast. The first time we had some technical difficulties. So I actually have heard some of the story, but I'm going to try to dig deep into for the audience so that way they can really extract some of the golden nuggets that we're going to learn today. But what I've been most impressed with you, sir, as I've been watching your growth, I think we both started, when did you start the company?
16.
16. I started in 15, right? Yeah. So we're kind of right at the same time, right? And I've watched you over the last year to really make a shift. And I really, through social media, I've started to hear a little bit about your story. I've started to see your energy. I started to see your heart, right? That's what attracted me was your heart. I could just see something in it, the way you talk, the way you speak. And I know your business partner, Adam, from when he used to work for my uncle. But it was something about you and the way that you speak that really drew me in. And I want to get to know that a little bit more. Let's talk about what caused that transformation in the way that you speak on social media and why you're now coming out and just being more of a light to the world.
So I would say, obviously, that's not always been the case. And with age, you get knowledge, you get, wisdom. And I would give the most credit to just starting to read books, which is something I never thought I would do. And I started reading books and listening to positive stuff, however you want to look at it, and realizing that, what you want out of life is what you have to give. It has to be an equal balance. So if I'm not giving what I want back, I can't expect something to come to me.
Well, let me push back on two things that you said. First one was, as you get older, you get more wise, but that's not necessarily always the correlation, because I know a lot of old people that are the same as they were 50 years ago. Right? So let's change that mindset, because I want to know, I think it's more than just getting older. It's applying the things that you're learning. And then you said, I read books and now I've become better, but you also have to take what you're reading and actually find a meaning and actually do something about it. So what about you specifically? Because there's a lot of people that say they read books, but I don't see them moved the way that you're moved. So Tell me about your personal, why does that move you so much? Why do you take action when you read a book? Why do you even read a book in the first place?
Because I have a purpose in life, and I think, the reason you have these older people that are, been the same for 50 years, and why most people, to be honest, you come in contact with are always the same, and they don't drive themselves every day to be better, is because more than likely they just don't have something that truly drives them, like a true purpose. And my purpose comes from some deep-rooted things I've been through and in my past that really fueled the fire and drove me forward.
So how do you think someone finds a purpose? How did you find your purpose? At what point in your life can you look back to and say, wow, it clicked? And I know nobody's perfect even once you find a purpose, but what point in your life did you start to transform into wow, I got a purpose. This actually means something. I'm actually going to do something about it. And the fire started blazing.
I don't know if I could say one specific moment, but it definitely around the time it started. I have 3 boys. I have 5, including my girlfriend's 2 boys. But when I had my first son, which was 10 years ago, something just clicked for me, among a couple other things too, but something just clicked in my head for me. And I remember, really getting emotional and being oh my God, I have somebody, another set of eyes that's looking at me and going to do what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? So, and as he got older, my oldest and my boys in general got older, that kind of just still fuels me right now.
And you think, what? But not every single person. Here's the thing. I'm going to press again.
Yeah.
Not every single person that has a kid has a purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a little deeper. Why you? And why, like, what else?
Yeah, you're definitely right there. I know plenty of people that have kids that still just don't give a shit.
Yeah, and then they stay the same for 100 years. And, like, yeah. So, like, why specifically you, Travis?
I like how you're digging into this question here. I would say even further is going to be my relationship with God, and my relationship with myself is just getting better, I guess.
So when did you first develop that relationship with God?
So that's a longer story, but so like I said, my son's 10 years old, so I would say 12 years ago. When I was young, I got into trouble, got on a wrong path, and wasn't living right, and ended up in a situation where I ended up getting shot a couple times, actually. And I got shot in my head twice, kind of grazed me here and here.
Good thing he was a bad shot.
Yeah, right. I guess we wouldn't be having this talk, but
no. No, you know what? That's the grace of God. God did it on purpose. Like, can you explain any other purpose? Can you explain it any other way?
Well,
no. That you didn't die?
No, because if you would have knew the circumstances and how it happened, you would even more be like...
Well, tell us!
Well, like, I was literally point blank from me to the next person away with somebody like this, and somehow, some way, ended up just lowering down enough to where it skimmed me, and then was running and got skimmed again that I didn't even know about, the EMS had to tell me about. So that I'll get to that point too, is so how I know that, you know, that was God was because shortly thereafter, and I always had a relationship with God that started with my mom, and she built that relationship, just always trusting that everything's going to work out, and put your trust in God and quit thinking about your problems and everything will work. You cannot fail. You put your trust in God, at the end of the day, what can go wrong? I mean, you're good. So what happened was a couple weeks later, maybe a week or two later after that happened, I was sitting in my room midday, and I just started to feel a pull down and a pull up. And, like, I don't know how to explain this to somebody who's never felt it before, but what your spirit feels like, what it feels like to just, like, not be in this world, but be, you know, your soul, your spirit, however you want to look at it. I knew that's what that feeling was, like, right when it happened. And I just appeared in a room, and I was with Jesus, and he didn't have to say, you know, hey, I'm Jesus, how you doing, or anything like that. It was just immediately like the greatest, safest feeling you could ever imagine. You can imagine. Feeling that was just like, you know, like almost like we're put here to endure this pain, so that when it's over, you like really appreciate God. Maybe is the point. You know what I mean? So you get to the end, and like I didn't get to the end there, but I felt the feeling of just being in the presence of Jesus, and it was just like I said, it was like the safest, warmest, most secure. Like nothing can hurt you. You don't have to worry about nothing happening to your loved ones. Like it's just over. Like, and it says in the Bible that, like, you know, when you do die, there you won't have any questions. Like you won't even have to ask anything. You just will be filled with just the knowledge of God.
When you had that experience, Did you share it with anybody right away, or did you kind of just hang on to it, or how did it make you feel?
No, I did. Like, everybody close to me, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't go, because I don't want it to be this thing where, because I feel like sometimes when people talk about things like this, people either think you're full of it, or you're just trying to get attention, or something like that, and I never want that to be my intention, you know what I mean? Like, I want it to be, like, it's a real thing that happened to me that I can't give to anybody else. You know, I could tell people what I went through, but I did, people close to me, family, friends, stuff like that.
Let me ask you why, though, sharing your story, right? Do you think you're supposed to share that story? Do you think that, like, you're called to share that story? And why do you think you're called to share that story?
Yes, I do, and it's kind of what I'm coming to terms with, is not only that, but along with all the other things I've been through, along with, like, you know, I've been through it all, and, like, I've always tried to hide it, being scared that somebody's going to judge me, but, like, I'm starting to realize more and more that, like, it's selfish of me to go hide my story and my all the hard spots in my life that got me to where I am, and try to just, like, go on social media and glorify being this, like, oh, this business owner that's, like, talks great to everybody and is positive and, like, you know, thinks his, you know, crap don't stink or whatever. Like, I don't want that to be the case. I think it's selfish for me to hold it back.
And what do you think should be the outcome, or I guess what is your intention, or what do you think God's intention is to use you and to use this story as a vehicle to what? Like, what is the purpose?
I think it's, you know, what all of our purpose is in one way or another, which is just to be a beacon of light to other people. Like, there's, you know, like I said, we were all put here to endure this life in this world, and you know, I think we all in one way or another need to be a positive light to other people. You know what I mean? Because that's, you know, not everybody you come in contact with, you know, is a bright, loving person that wants to give it to other people. Most people kind of maybe have the doom and gloom, or just if they are happy or anything, don't share it, their light.
So why are you, like, you mentioned something about, like, always, like, feeling like you don't want to necessarily always talk about it because you feel like you may be coming across too, you know, too godly or too churchy or whatever you're trying to, but, like, isn't that the whole reason that you're supposed to share it?
Yeah, it is.
So why do you care, like, what people think, if that's really what you're called to do?
At this point, I don't, and which is why I'm talking about it with you. Because I've hit the point, and you motivated me a lot just talking about your story and stuff like that, and making me realize that, like, that's important. Like, who cares about, you know, anything else, all your successes? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to hear about how you got there, and, like, you know, what it took you to get there. So then that's what's going to help somebody. You sitting there talking about how you're sitting on a mountain ain't going to help nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, they want to see how you went to the valley, and then the mountain, and then the crevice, and then the mountain.
Yes.
And then we just keep, you know, we get to the mountaintop, and then we can peek our head up, and then guess what? It starts to create more mountaintop.
There's another one.
It's almost like a virtual mountain. Like, as soon as you get to the top, you kind of, like, hang out at the top for a little bit. You can see down all the crevices and all the cracks of where you've been, and you can see, like, you know, I imagine, like, this big mountain, right, with sharp points and just crazy, and that's our life, right?
Yeah.
Then we get to the top, and we build a little plateau there, right? We hang out there for a little bit, we enjoy it, right? We feel good. We might pull some people up that are coming up, you know. Guess what? Every once in a while, we might slip down a little bit.
Hell yeah.
But then when we get back up to the top, and we start building again, and then you start climbing again, and then there's another plateau, right? And I think that, like, you know, I don't know if it's a metaphor or analogy. I was never good at, like, to understand, like, what's what. But you get to the point, right? Like, that's a picture, right, that God created through His, like, beauty, right, of the world, like a mountaintop, right? And we can take these parallels with animals and plants and, you know, growth of a tree and a plant, right? And there's weeds and there's beautiful flowers. And and all the comparisons that we can make to our life, right? What is the odds? Like, to me, like, it's almost more impossible that there is no God. Like, that's like it almost like that's harder to conceive. You know, how can you explain it any other way that all these things have symbols that then you can tie back to our life, and then there's stories like yours and mine that then we feel compelled through the Holy Spirit is what I think it is, that it just starts coming out of us and it just starts oozing, right? And I struggle with the same thing that you do, brother. So I want you to know that, like, you're not alone, because sometimes I'm afraid to talk about it because I'm thinking, like, wow, because they're going to point out all the bad stuff I did in life, and then I'm going to have to own that too. And, like, I haven't shared everything yet. Like, and it's like, you know, who cares? Like, but like, so that's why I feel like we need to stick together. So then that way, like, you know, because it gets lonely sometimes, man. Because everyone's got so many fears and insecurities, right? So like, what's your biggest fear or insecurity right now?
Like I said, I can't say I'm fearless. I aim to be every day. You know what I mean? But, you know, I write these things down every day, and, you know, one of the things I'm doing makes me, like, write down every day what's, you know, all the things I fear. You know, me failing, just in my business failing, ending up back in a situation I was in, not hacking it, not being good enough. These are feelings I think we all have, you know, that I can't deny. They're feelings that I work really hard every day to try to get over and get past.
You said something about failing and going back to what it is. Do you think that, you know, because again, and I remember being a young entrepreneur, tying a lot of my identity and a lot of, like, you know, I would attach to this, like, you know, this company identity, right? Because, like, that, for, you know, it was the first thing I ever had that I was proud of. You know what I mean? Like, ever, like, in my entire life. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And then it became like a thing, right, which kind of drove me. But then, like, what drove me to be success, what I called success back in the day, because I got to be careful the way I frame this, because it's the same thing. My fear and insecurity drove me to the success. And, you know, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. It's like we see other people, like, their fears and insecurities actually drive them up the mountain. The problem is like, if you always let fear and insecurity drive you to success, because when you do fail, and you will, it's inevitable that you will fail.
Yes.
If you're judging it on business, and, like, because again, like, what's success? Like, it's not measurable. Like, you cannot measure. You're the one that's responsible for measuring it, and so it's how you measure it. But a lot of us say, "Oh, well, we're not," because we compare ourselves, right? So what I'm trying to say is like, how do you then turn like the passion and the positivity and just the warmth, and then, like, are we afraid? Because sometimes I'm asking because I don't know either. Like, are we afraid that, like, if we don't have that thing that's driving us, that we're just gonna, like, get complacent?
Right. Yeah, I definitely feel like the big thing I would say that relates to what you're saying is we're so scared to be vulnerable. Me and you are like competitors, like, you know, competitors. We're have roofing companies in the same area. You would think, you know, that would be something we'd be worried about, being vulnerable to the other person, and that's how a lot of these other guys in general think. People think, is they're just so scared to just be vulnerable and, like, let their walls down and just show somebody who they really are, because they're scared that's whenever somebody's going to, like, attack them or something. Somebody's going to try to come after them at that point, or do something to bring them down. But if the truth be told, that's the only way to really, like, you know, I said, the material possessions and the business and all that stuff only goes so far. If you really want to feel successful, I think you have to be vulnerable to a point.
We know our own fears and insecurities, and our fear of being vulnerable leads to this, like, hiding, right? You know, and kind of like what, you know, have you read the Bible before?
Yeah.
And, like, some parts, you know, like Adam and Eve, right? As soon as, like, sin entered the world, right, they started covering up, right? Because they were ashamed, right? They're embarrassed, right? And that's what sin does. And not to make this a gospel message, but I think it's, the more and more I have these podcasts, I'm on like episode, I feel like we're in our late 50s or early 60s by now. Not sure which one this will be. But it's like the more I get comfortable, I'm like just sharing like really what's on my heart of what like really drives like and burns inside of me. And, I want to, make sure that, we can be okay sharing these things that are on our heart. So I appreciate you, even sharing that because I know that that's not easy.
Yeah.
But it feels good though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like the new high on life, right? I mean, like it is like it's like Jesus is the reason. You mentioned your mom's the first one that introduced you to this whole concept of trust and things like that. Let's do a complete pivot. Let's go back to Travis, the perfect little child, right? When he came out of the womb, perfect baby until the world starts beating you up, right?
Yeah, right.
So what have you learned on this journey of self-exploration about yourself and like where you came from and like, because I'm assuming if you're anything like me, you probably realize that like, hey, like this is all meant to be. It's all part of the plan. It's all part of the purpose. Like I needed to go through that. At first while we're going through it, we don't understand. You told me about a story where, you guys didn't grow up with like a whole lot of stuff, right? Like, you're kind of poor, correct?
100%, yeah.
So tell me about childhood and what it was like. Do you have brothers, sisters? Where'd you grow up at? Give me the childhood story.
Yeah, so I grew up with my mom and I have 3 brothers. My mom has 4 boys. So I lived with my other 3 brothers. So my mom and 4 boys. So our whole lives, all she did was, work minimum wage jobs or whatever. She worked at like Shop and Save. She was a cook at Eaton Park for like 20 years. So I could only imagine now that I'm older and I look back on it, what that was like for her to be working a minimum wage job, trying to pay all your bills and feed 4 kids. And, it's like...
I'm thinking about it now, doing what we do now, and I feel like it's a struggle. But I know people are going to look at me like, oh, yeah, he's lost touch, he doesn't know. Like...
I know better, but no. So we had me and my 3 brothers, and it was hard for her. My dad was in our lives. It was more weekends, evenings.
I was going to ask you, what happened to Pops?
Yeah, Pops is still around, and he was around back then, but he, to be honest, had his own issues like drinking and stuff like that, and he didn't live with my mom, so
But your mom and dad like same boys, like there wasn't like multiple like.
My mom had 2 with her ex, and then 2 with my dad.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. So, so we were raised by her. She worked a minimum wage job. I didn't know when I was young, like how poor we were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's different levels of the poor. You don't realize it until you're old enough to realize when you start buying stuff.
Yeah.
Like, man, like, I remember I was talking to, this is crazy. So my fiance, Brittany, I was talking to her about this because we were getting to know each other back in the early days. And we're like, how'd you grow up? And I said, oh, yeah, I grew up like lower middle class. I think by the time I entered high school, I feel like I was pretty middle class, And then she was describing to me, and she kind of like said the same thing. And she's like, oh, yeah, we kind of grew up poor. And she was telling me some stories. And I was like, oh, her stories are way worse than mine. Like,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's not poor. That's destitute.
Oh,
like,
you got a good one.
That's like, there's like another level, right? Like, I was like, I didn't, because I always grew up, my mom always said, oh, there's not enough money. We don't have enough. But then when I hear like stories like hers and maybe yours, it's like, no, there's different levels to this. Like there's different levels because it's all perspective, right? Because we label the same word, right? Your mom said we were poor. My mom said we were poor. Different poors, though.
Yeah, different poors. So just to give you a little insight, like I said, I didn't know how poor we were until I got older. And the worst part about being poor where I'm from is you're surrounded by a bunch of people with money. So, like, there's like, these like crappy little sections of town.
Where are you from?
Bell Vernon.
Okay, so Bell Vernon, PA is like a suburb, just for everybody listening. It's probably like about 45 minutes from Pittsburgh. It's kind of, along a river, kind of. I don't know if there was a steel town there, but there's steel towns all around it, right? So Belle Vernon's like where you probably went back in the steel town where the rich people went to like build a community, probably, right?
Yeah. And then people branched off. So we're like the heart of like when you think of like southern Pittsburgh, like, you know what I mean? Like everybody here is like hardcore into football and yada yada. So that's what I did my whole life, is play football and stuff. But yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't know how poor we were until now that I'm older, and I realized like we never went out to eat ever. And when I say out to eat, I don't mean going to a restaurant. I mean like we didn't even go to McDonald's. Like we barely
like Eaton Park was like probably like the best thing you ever did, like one time a year if you're lucky. If you're lucky.
If that. If anything, we waited for, I remember waiting for my mom. This is no shit. I remember waiting for my mom to get home from work to give us her free meal she'd get from work. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we were like some people, like you said, there's different levels. Like, we were poor. Like,
give me another poor story that like is kind of like not funny, but funny looking back. You know what I mean?
Looking back is no, because I don't mind sharing it, because it's what turned me into the person like we talk about. Like, I've been through all this stuff. Like, it's how you gonna hurt me whenever I've been through this and this and this. So another poor story. One of the worst that I usually share is like growing up, like 3 years when I was in high school, we had no heat and we had no hot water.
Wow.
So I would sleep in my room, and this like wasn't like I said, my mom never did drugs, never drank, never, so it ain't like something where I could be like, oh, his parents must have been like, some people legitimately just can't make ends meet. You know what I mean? Like, she just couldn't make ends meet. So I remember going under the blanket, like going to sleep, and you would just breathe as hard as you could, as much as you could, and like you wasn't opening that blanket for nothing, because if you did, you're going to let that cold air back in, and now you're going to restart the whole process. Then I'd have to wake up in the morning, go downstairs, and get a freezing cold shower. Probably, I don't know.
But I would have skipped showers. Like you had to skip like a couple days, because like there's no way that could have been. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like.
But that's probably why kids skip showers. The smelly kids at school, probably it's not because they don't do it. It's probably because like the water's too cold.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I think about that, and like if I grew up like that, it makes me think like how many other kids grow up like that.
You just don't know. We don't know. Yeah, it's like even like, and that's a good school, and that's a good school district. Dude, it's not like a terrible like. It's like
there's plenty of kids still probably growing up like that you don't even realize, man. I know that for a fact there is. You know what I mean? Like, and there's everywhere, man. It's just, and they're not going to go just like I didn't. They're not going to go tell people and be like, hey, I don't have no hot water, like. You know what I mean? So, like, for anybody to help or, like, like, I just toughed it out. Like, to me, it was just like, okay, like, we'll get through this. Like, it'll, it's, is what it is. Like, I was just used to it. I knew it sucked when I got to high school and I started going to parties and stuff. And I'd go to these kids' houses in these, like, rich neighborhoods. And I'm like... Like, I never even seen
what's a rich neighborhood, like a $300,000 house, probably?
Oh, yeah,
like,
well, $300,000 gets you up.
No, I know, but back then I'm thinking, I'm trying to like see how you label rich, right? And it's probably not like, and now it's not like a $2 million house, or like it's not like some big mega mansion. It's just like it's probably like a Ryan home community.
Yep,
that's rich.
Home.
See, that's perspective, though, right? And like, I'll be like, tell you, like, dude, that's not rich. Like, like,
you guys are barely making it. But no, to me, I'm going in there. And I'm like, oh my, like I got new carpet and like, everything's like painted real nice. And you're like, I remember going in these kids' houses and being like, oh my God, I can't believe I invite, and here's the thing. These kids would come over to my house and party and hang out and stuff because my mom worked all evening. She didn't get home till 11, 12 o'clock at night. She'd be like, don't you have your friends here? I'd be like, all right. And they'd still all come over, and like, all my like buddies who like grew up in these nice houses would come hang out at my house and didn't like really even like talk crap to me or like pick on me about it or like maybe throw a shot or something here and there, but it wasn't You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah.
But I didn't realize how poor I was until I got to high school and I started going to these people's houses and being like, "Oh my God, we're broke. I better do something."
Now, again, I don't know if you're anything about me when I was a kid. Now, like I would I kind of went home and I was like, I told my mom about those kids and I told my mom what else was out there, right? And then I probably didn't do it in the best, kindest way, right? Like, how did you approach your mom once you started realizing there was more out there? How did you handle that situation?
I wouldn't say, like, I never really would, like, put her down or anything like that.
No.
But I'd say it kind of instilled this thing in me to where I knew she was a woman and she wasn't going to be able to give me the things that I was seeing. So that's probably started lighting a fire under me to be like, okay, if I want that life and I want to help her, like I really just wanted to, like, still to this day, like anything my mom asked me for, like, it's done. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what I got to do, like, because of how we grew up, that, like, lit a fire under me to be like, okay, this is up to me. And I was the one of my 4 brothers that, like, really, let that, like, fuel me and drive me. And my other brothers do too, you know what I mean? But, like, I'm like...
the competitor's coming out of you. You're the top brother, aren't you?
I'm the top brother. Right. I'm the one with the most drive. I'm the one that's, like, you know what I mean? Like, the go-getter.
Are you oldest, youngest, in the middle? Where you at?
I'm the third. So I'm
all
the middle.
right. So you're the oldest to your dad.
Yep.
All right. I'm paying attention, man. I follow along. It's wild, right? How our childhoods, shape kind of like our lives, right? And and our kids, you have how many? You have 4 kids, right?
I have 3 boys.
3 boys. So you have 3 boys, and they're not going to experience the same childhood that you experienced, right?
No, the struggle they'll feel is different than the struggle. Their mom left like 3 years ago. Left, she's just on a bad path, whatever you want to say. So they have a different pain and a different something that I don't understand that they'll have to use to fuel them. But as for the poverty and stuff like that, they're never going to have to feel that.
You're always going to, well, listen, for me, I always have to make sure, like, I have to put my bills on auto pay because, like, I don't care how much money is in my bank account. I literally will forget to pay bills and, like, things will get shut off. So, like, luckily for auto pay, utilities are over in here. And I will say one thing too, like when I always thought, like, living, buying that big house, right, I was going to feel happy, right? And I eventually was able to buy that big house, right? That I was, like, always thought, like, I was dreaming of. And then I realized, dude, that didn't make me happy either. And money didn't make me happy. And, like, it's like, and it didn't make sense. Like, because I thought, like, dude, my whole life, for the first 35 years of my life, I thought, like, that's what I have to achieve. Like, I got to be able to get to a place where I can buy a $500,000 house, drive whatever cars I want, and I've made it. Because that's what I wanted. Because I thought, man, my whole life, like, I didn't have that. Like, I wanted that so bad.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was like, oh. This didn't work. So when I, unfortunately, like, I went through a divorce, or fortunately, I guess it all depends on your perspective, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people listening, so I don't want to make light of it.
Yeah.
But then when I got, and I realized, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to a smaller, more just, I live in a neighborhood in, like, West Mifflin down here by Munhall, man.
Yeah.
It's a neighborhood just like a neighborhood like that you may have grown up in Bell Vernon or like New Eagle or Monongahela. Yeah, like, listen, man, I bought a house. It's I think I paid $165,000 for it. I've never been happier in my life, brother.
That's awesome.
Never been happy. Now this, we finished it up. I got some nice finishes on the inside, but still, the house was 30. We bought the house for $30,000, and then my buddy Alex, who was a guest on the show, he put in, I think he put $100,000 into it and made it all brand new inside. And Listen, nobody would ever suspect that Ben Fisher is like, and I love it. I love it. Now I'm getting, now that I had a baby, I'm getting, now I'm going to need to buy something bigger, and it's probably going to drive me back into one of those, other houses. But you know what? It's been good for I've been here 3 years, and it's really been good for me, and it's made me humble, right? More humble, because I got a little. I don't know if you ever got this before, but I let my ego and my my external things, the whatever you want to call it, success, or I was one of the first young guys in the roofing industry in Pittsburgh to really make a move up, right, with a brand and stuff like that. And it's I was like, yeah. Dude, I shouldn't have been like that.
You needed it though. You need something to drive you to that point. But you're right. Then you hit that peak like we talked about, and you're like, damn, it's like I'm looking for something else than I thought. Like, this is all good.
Yeah,
but I'm looking for something else.
And I found that over the last couple of years. It's been an interesting journey. But I want to get back to more about your journey. So, what was the biggest, other than growing up poor, what was another big challenge or hurdle or a piece of adversity that you overcame, before you, flew the coop and were, able to get out on your own?
I mean, it goes even, I from high school to having my first son, which is where my life really, really changed. I got on drugs and stuff, and really had a rough, after high school was rough, the 3 or 4 years, I had no purpose. I was in my head, just completely did not know what to do and what direction to turn. And I think young kids in general maybe feel that way, unless you have, really good parents that push you to go to college or, help you find something.
So you didn't have because again, I don't know how much your dad was around, but your mom was in survival mode. It sounds like, just trying to get by, right? So she didn't have the chance to be able to look for different ways. It's not like she was reading books or anything like that. It's not, the education level was probably just, she wasn't learning guys like me and you now. It's we're just addicted to the learning. We used to be addicted to drugs. Now we're addicted to reading.
Right.
It's fascinating, right?
Addictive personality, yeah.
Yeah, do you think, though, that, growing up, not having your dad around a lot, your mom just being in survival mode, and then you, left to, figure it out, do you think that was probably, you were just on your path, and you kind of just tried a bunch of stuff, and you're just, in your environment that kind of led to, a clunky, up and down, kind of rocky 20s, if you will?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's like you said, there's no guidance there. My parents didn't. My dad's worked at the mill for 20 years. My mom was a cook they don't know nothing about school. They don't know nothing about self-development or, motivational speeches or that whole realm of living was just unheard of to me. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what else to turn to numb that pain, so I started doing drugs, which is really just made it a million times worse, because then you feel like you have this black cloud over you that you're just never going to get out of, and you're I didn't even understand. I didn't think in a million years I'd ever even be able to function without doing something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now I don't even drink. I don't do anything, but like I said at the time, that's what I turned to kind of numb it.
Did you ever what was the environment as far as your friends and your work history in your 20s were you always around the same group? Did you kind of bounce around? Were you always looking for love in the wrong places? Did you? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand, because there's a lot of similarities and parallels that I'm making. Just on my journey, your journey, and I feel like there's some takeaways here.
Yeah, definitely. So it was definitely what I would resort back, and what I'm going to be the toughest on my kids about is the people I was around. You know what I mean? The kids I was around, it started off as this cool, fun, we care about each other. Here, hit this, whatever. We're hanging out and partying. Let's go to this party. And that like slowly evolved into harder drugs and things like that. And then, yes, I did look for love in the wrong places with the wrong people, and that damaged me severely too, because then I was like, thinking there was something wrong with me, and there wasn't. And that like stuck a wound in me, so it was all kind of just poking me up.
So what would you say to somebody right now if they're listening and they know that they're in a bad situation? See, like what happened to me, and I think what happened to you in our 20s, like it's like double-edged sword. Like, yes, we're using substances, and again, if it's not substances for you, think about something else that you're relying on, and you're using it as a crutch, or you're using it as an escape, or maybe there's hate in your heart. But then combine that then with being around the wrong people, and it's like a double recipe for disaster quicker.
Oh yeah.
What would you say to someone right now if they're listening and they're thinking like, yeah, man, I need to get out of my current situation. My current situation is obviously not ideal. How would you instruct someone to get out of that if they feel like they're too deep in it? Because we've been there.
Yeah, my advice to somebody in that situation is, as hard as it is you do not need anybody else to clarify who you are as a person, or to make you a good person. You don't need anybody else in your life that's it has to come from within. So you have to start by cutting ties immediately with anybody who's a negative influence on your life, and take it all back to the core, which is you and God.
But that's a lot. So again, I'm imagining if this was me, and I was 27, 28, right in the thick of things, doing drugs, selling drugs, you know what I mean? Just living like just like I don't even know what you call it, just like a hellion, right? And I knew better, right? Because I was a Christian, I was saved, I ended up going down a bad path because, again, I thought I was messed up. I thought there was something wrong with me. And if I would have heard you tell me that, I'd be like, oh, man, what am I going to do out here? I'm going to be by myself. Like, you're going to leave me with nothing. Like, how am I going to get out? See what I'm saying? Yeah, so how do they get out, man?
That's where it's so hard to, because I'm putting myself in that situation too. If I were to go back and talk to myself.
Yeah, or even like a guy like me, like now, talks to you, and I say, come on, Travis, you can do it. Come on, just do it, just start, get with God and get rid of all your friends. What would you do? Or what would you say?
I probably would have said the same thing you're saying. It's like, how am I gonna do that?
Yeah, so how do we help people like that? How do we actually really help people? Because I feel like sometimes it's just rhetoric that comes out around. Even though we believe it because we've experienced it and we've done it, how does somebody really get help, and how do guys like me and you help those people?
I would say, obviously, I'm assuming, hopefully, that they have the relationship with God's there and everything like that, and they do have people around them. But slow progress, don't maybe I'm saying that the wrong way. Maybe cutting everybody off and resorting back to the core like that is going to be a very tough thing for you to do. So you have to start focusing on maybe slow progress, like looking at your life as a whole and start just working on one thing at a time. Because I know for me personally, the person I am today has been just sharpened for years and years and years. Like I started off on hardcore drugs and just slowly like dwindled down into like a lighter drug, to be honest. And then
tapered.
What's that?
You tapered.
I tapered and got down into this, and then that worked for a while, and I got to this, and then I was drinking, and like even I tapered that down, and then I was drinking on weekends, and I completely took that away, and then I used to smoke cigarettes and chew, and I tapered that down and started chewing nicotine gum. So I can't sit here and say that there's going to be a fix right this second. It has to come from slow progress.
What about people in your life, right? We talk about, get out of the environment of, the people that aren't, edifying you, building you up, making you better. Did you surround yourself with even one person that like was a little bit of a beacon of light? And how did that person help you kind of maybe gain momentum? Because I think that you need a mentor, a therapist, a relationship coach, a pastor. I honestly do believe, because it's such a lonely world, I think humans are created in God's own likeness, that we have to lean on each other. So, like, was there anybody like that for you?
I would say, so I started a job. Yeah, definitely. Now that you're like making me dig deep into this.
That's what I'm here for, brother.
Yeah, right. So I started off, one of the first things I remember, like, just praying, like, I just want to, get off drugs. Like, like, it was to the point where I was like, okay, like, I have to start making a change. And obviously prayed about it, and maybe, in my opinion, this God put him in my life. But my boss was I got a job doing construction. And this guy was a little Slovak guy. You probably know him. He's from Monongahela. He's a little Slovak guy.
I don't know everybody from Monongahela, even though there's a couple thousand people, but maybe I know him.
Right. He's a little Slovak guy, and he's like, I started working for him, and he started teaching me just basic stuff. And I remember him just always having talk. He would pray at, like, lunchtime, and, like, he would just have, like, serious talks with me. And, like, he was not nice about it. Like, he was not like, yeah, everything will be okay, just trust God. He was like, why are you doing this? And he would, like, stick this knife in me with his words and just, like, really hurt my feelings. And, like, I needed it. And he was doing it to me because he cared about me. And, like, he started just having these talks with me. And, like, I still have a relationship with him to this day, because I think back on it and I'm like,
what's his name? I want to thank him.
George Stasko.
George Stasko. Oh, Stasko Construction.
That's him. Yep.
Yeah, he had a little officer on 2nd Street, I think.
Yeah.
I think I ever met the guy one time. He's right around the corner from my uncle.
Yep.
Man, George, if you're listening, and you should send him this podcast, thank you for being a mentor and a good influence on our buddy Travis, because Travis is about to change the world. He's been changing it, and he's getting ready to take off rocket ship style. So, and George needs to know that, because he needs to know that work that he put in how many years ago, I don't know how long ago that was, but like, what, 10 years ago or whatever? Yeah. That, it's worth it, because, so many times, and you know this because I know you help people, like, we try to help, and then we don't ever know if it sinks in or not. And you probably didn't even realize that it was actually sinking in when it did. You probably have to look back to find that time, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wow, that's where it started, right? And then there would be another win. Then who's the next person that you met that you're like, whoa, wow, and like, So, yeah, right. So I met him, and he drove the God in me and the religion even further than it already was. And it was like, and not only that, like, he was just like somebody God placed in my life to try to just start to mold me and change me. And let me just comment that at the time, like I said, I would come home from work every day and, like, hate my life. Not because he was a bad person, but because he told me how it was, and he taught in a way that was very to the point and very, like, in you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't that loving mother, man. He was like that. He was like that harsh father.
And now what he does when he sees me, he literally, like, tears up, and he's like, just tells me how proud of me he is.
It's like Mr. Miyagi, man. It's like Karate Kid. You saw that movie, right?
Yeah, it's like that. And then, so that turned into the next person I would say that was some guidance for me. It was a manager I had. I started Coast to Coast Communications selling Comcast door to door. And that was like a group of probably like 20, 30 young guys, all my age, that were all starting to get into these like MLMs, and like they were all having these conversations like, we're going to make $1 million tomorrow, and da-da-da-da-da. And they would like play these like motivational videos and like put like an Eric Thomas video on.
All right.
And I'm like, that, like, I never seen nothing like that. You know what I mean? Like, before that, like the motivational videos and, like, the speakers and stuff like that, like I was like, oh my God, this is like, it was like pumped me up. Like I watched the Law of Attraction and was like I really bought into that. And just, I used to be 350 pounds too. You know what
really?
I mean?
I was 370. How tall are you?
6'2".
I'm 6'1", man. I was 370 at my peak, maybe 375 at my peak.
Yeah.
Just miserable, man. Just
I didn't think I was that big until I look back at it.
Well, you look good, man. You've done better than I have. I'm still on my journey. I plateaued like around 300, not the sidetrack, but I still got like another probably 50 or 60 pounds to go. So
yeah, you'll get there. That's a whole nother journey, but yeah, that drove me to just be like, holy cow! Like you can have anything legitimately have anything you want if you can just persevere through life's problems.
That's so good. I mean? That's so good.
Yeah, you can have anything you want, but you can't expect to have it and there not be issues. How many issues have you had since you started?
I've started what? Living right?
Your company or whatever.
Oh, the company. I mean, we have issues every day, regardless if it's a company or I mean, like there's literally new challenges. That's what tells you that you're alive. If you don't have those, I would check your pulse right now. If you're at home and like, oh, I don't have no issues, that means you ain't living.
Yeah.
Like you gotta live. You gotta experience life to be able to like, and issues aren't a problem. It's called, how do we problem solve? How do we help you? How do we get everybody else on board? But I love the fact that you're able to pick a couple of those people out that really started that journey, because I think it's so important, now that we're a little older, we're a little wiser, that we kind of find some people to kind of either mentor, and maybe that's why we have companies, right? Because now it's just it's an incubator. We don't have to actually go very far because, we have people right in front of us that we need to lead and help and deliver, and it's constant every day, and it's definitely it's a serious calling, right? To be a leader, and I think everybody's a leader. There's just some people that have developed different skill sets and their ability on how to lead, right? And some people, listen, back in my old days, and so are you, we probably led people to do some bad stuff.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And the same way that we can lead people to do good stuff, it's all about shifting that perspective and that mindset. And then using mentors, again, whoever it can be in your life, I've had really good luck over the past 2 years with therapists. I don't know if you've ever went down the therapy path, but as I started to understand the science and why my brain does that, and then why things happen, and then really to search for forgiveness and have empathy for because I was always used to be I'd blame the people that I was around, or I'd blame my parents, or I'd blame those bad influential friends, or I'd blame. It's I had this victim mentality where I blamed everybody else. I didn't take on extreme ownership. And but then it's all right, well, once you realize, the reason that our parents or those friends, it's because they were around the same environment that we were, and then it's a trickle
down.
Yeah, and then I have and then this is how I'm able to have so much love and compassion and empathy for everybody, because once I understood that, I don't blame anybody, man. I'm oh man, that's just the way it is, man. That actually is the reason that we're even having a conversation and that we're able to move forward, is because we had that struggle in our life. It was divinely put there on purpose for us to figure out the lesson in life. How do you feel about that?
Definitely.
I want to know, again, this is not a business podcast. We do talk about business every once in a while. But I just want to let you know, man, I'm rooting for you. And like you said, competitors, this is maybe weird. I don't know what this means to me. I've never thought of, I know that there's competition, but I look at it in a way of not who can we beat. I look at it as I've always looked at it like this. It's man, they make me better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I first started, I was all right, well, who can I who can I try to emulate? Who can I be like? My uncle was, somebody that really showed me a lot about the industry, had a big heart. Of course, there's always things that I thought I could do different. I thought I could do better. Hence why, started my own thing. But you learn, right? And then there's other people in the industry that you meet that's doing something special, and you're wow, I like that, and it's you just put everything together and you kind of just figure out how you want to direct your own company. It's kind of like your own little world that you get to kind of create, right? I talk to people, how do you feel about this statement? like God created everybody in his likeness, being he's a creator, so everybody else I think has the inherent, like they're all creators. Some people create good, some people create bad, some people create confusion, but we're all creators. How do you feel about that statement?
I 100% agree, which is what kind of goes back to the, not to think in a competitive mindset, but a creative mindset. We are all creators, and every single thing you're looking at around you and you're experiencing started off from this computer to your camera to your logo behind you to your your shirt started off as a thought in somebody's mind. One small little thought that they then blossomed into a physical thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that thought becomes an action, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so interesting. Well, listen, I know it's we're recording this on a Monday night. We both probably want to go, enjoy some of our families. I really appreciate you doing this again with me. I know, there's a lot more we can cover, but I think that we covered what we were supposed to cover today.
Yeah.
If someone, here's what I want to know. Why? Let's do a little thing. I'm going to tell you, if you're listening right now and you're a homeowner in the Pittsburgh area and you're looking for a roofer, I think you now know why you can, do business with a guy like Travis, right? It's hard to market that, It's hard to, you can only put so much in words, right? Like on text and on graphics and, you got this cool muscle planet behind you. But this is the real Travis. This is the true Travis. This is the unencumbered Travis, right? This is what they're doing over at Planet Roof. And, am I partial to Big Fish? And do I want Big Fish to sell as many roofs because I know we can affect a lot of lives? Yes. But if for some reason, it doesn't go that way, definitely pick this guy because he is... he's got it going on, because I'd rather take somebody that's got heart, and, of course we're all going to make mistakes, we're going to have shortcomings, but it's how you respond to those things, right? Because we know they're going to happen, right?
100%.
And I got 5 questions I ask every guest. Here they go. I know you've answered them before since we recorded this once, but we're going to do it again because I already forget. So you're on an island, okay? You're allowed to take one book with you. What book you taking with you?
Ooh. Power of Now.
Power of Now. Is that Ed Milet?
I believe, yes.
Oh, or Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle. Ed Milet's another book. Power of One, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember. Power of Now. Too many books we're reading. All right, what movie you taking with you?
Castaway.
That'd be a funny one if you're on an island by yourself. What restaurant you putting on your island? You never got to go out to eat as a kid, but now you have to put a restaurant on your island. You can pick any one you want. Which one you putting on there?
Oh, geez, that's a tough question.
What's your favorite spot, bro?
I'm a real simple eater.
Well, put a simple place. Chipotle. All right, put Chipotle down.
Can't get it wrong.
All right, sounds good, man. I'll take a burrito every day. And then you're allowed to go anywhere in the world. You're allowed to escape that place for a week and go anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go for a week?
I don't know. I've never been out of the country.
That's all right. Anywhere you want, man. You got, you know what the places look like and what Google says and where you want to go.
Maybe a nice spot in Mexico or something.
Money's no object. You can go anywhere. You want to go to Mexico? You can probably Mexico.
Maybe a Saudi Arabian Sea. I'd have to look it up.
There we go.
That's something I maybe need to work on.
There you go. See, you got to manifest that. You got to dream a little bit. Why? I ask these questions for a reason.
Yeah.
They all have it. You know me. I always have a different purpose. All right. And the last one is you can spend 24 hours with someone that, it could be someone from the past. It could be somebody, from the present day. It could be somebody that you know personally. It could be somebody that's a celebrity. It could be somebody that's famous. Anybody that you want to spend 24 hours with. You only got one 24-hour session with them. Who do you want to spend some time with?
It would be someone in the likes of, I don't know why, Abraham Lincoln always comes to my mind just because he was he lived by such principles and values and really wanted to make an impact, and from what I understand didn't really start to succeed until he was in his 40s.
And then someone clipped him.
Yeah, and then someone clipped him. People are haters.
Haters. I just took Sammy to Washington D.C. and we were walking down Pennsylvania Avenue, and I was like, "Hey, look!" Again, I don't know why I thought he would know this. I'm like, "Hey, look, Ford's Theater. That's where Abraham Lincoln got shot and killed." He's like, "Huh?" I'm just like, "Never mind. Just go back to school and read something.
Right.
Watch a video on YouTube."
Yeah.
If someone wants to talk to you, get more information from you, find out more about you, what's the best way to connect?
Travis Benjamin on Facebook or Instagram. Direct message.
I keep getting on you. Why do you keep using your middle name? Are you not ready to really come out with your name? Come on, man.
Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Maybe I
Why
should.
not? You just told your story. I mean, you tell your story. I see you on Facebook all the time. You're like, dude, the past is over with, bro. You're living in the present, and you're inspiring people into the future.
Right. You cut out there for a second. Sorry.
No, I was just telling you, like, people, like, you're inspiring people, right? I would totally try to. I'm gonna put it in your heart, if it's in your heart, to come out and, like, be your full self, right? And just see how it goes. I think it'll set you free.
This is my start.
It'll stay. No, I know it is, bro. I can't wait to publish this podcast. If you guys got value out of this podcast, like, subscribe, comment, send me an email. Let me know what you like about the show. Let me know who else you want to hear from. I'm trying to bring you the biggest and the brightest and the most inspirational stories about how you can overcome adversity and set yourself free, so that way you can live the life that you want, a life with purpose and passion, so that way you can win. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday on another edition of the Big Fish Cares podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.